Stop. Don't buy that picks package or all access. Wait, what? Yep, don't click add to cart until you check out our new deals page at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo, where you can find all the latest offers, promotions, and coupons available all in one place. These deals are updated daily and can be found by clicking deals in the nav at WagerTalk or Sports Memo, going to wt.buzz/deals, or scanning the QR code on your screen.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. You're watching Puck Time. I'm Andrew McInnis. I have Carmine Bianco with me and Bryan Leonard in his usual Thursday spot. It's playoff hockey. Looking forward to breaking down today's games. Quick recap of yesterday. We did see the Florida Panthers take a 3-2 series lead in their series. The Calgary Flames, they go up 3-2 in their series. The New York Rangers hang on, extend the series to a sixth game. They now trail 3-2 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you take a look across the board, we have some great games going on tonight. Looking forward to it. We, of course, more elimination games going on, and we're going to break those all down. Carm, I want to go over to you and just ask how your day was yesterday, what's going on for you today, and any quick thoughts on the games yesterday?
There was some good action last night. I think I told you, as far as like the late game goes, the Calgary game goes, I hung in for 2 periods. I watched once it was 1-0. I called it a night because I have a long day today. It is the wife's birthday today, so I've got a ton of stuff planned down here in Punta Cana for her, and then getting ready for some closeout games possibly tonight. Andrew, 4 big games tonight. But like last night, we're at dinner. And I have my phone set to like alerts. So every once in a while it's on the table and I just look over and I see 1-0 Washington, 2-0 Washington, 3-0 Washington. I'm like, I'm going to need more alcohol. And with that said, the Florida Panthers did make a comeback, did come on and win because I had the Panthers in regulation time and on the puck line along with the Calgary Flames in regulation time. So 3-0 night in NHL and a winning soccer day as well too. So, and I had a lot of plays, as you know. So I was pretty happy with how the day went in general. But man, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. I want to mention one other thing. A lot of you guys, if you're watching that Rangers game, the Rangers looked dead in the water, came back, won that game. Crosby taking that hit. I watched the hit over, Andrew and Bryan. I'm not sure if you guys have watched it. I watched it over 3 or 4 times, and it does look like he, like the as they call it, the chicken wing elbow as he came in and caught him with this side in the head. So who knows if he's on concussion protocol? We're never going to know. They're just going to call it an upper body injury, and we're going to have to wait to find out if Crosby's available tomorrow and stuff. And then I'm going to make one more point before I throw it to our esteemed guest, Bryan Leonard, is, listen, NHL is a rough game. You don't go head hunting, but you got to throw the body. We're not playing touch football, the hockey version of it. There's going to be hits in this game. No one is immune to it. You want to go after McKinnon. You want to go after McDavid. You want to go after Draisaitl or Matthews. You're going to pay for it in the end, but this game is all about body checking. We saw Ovechkin, who is a phenomenal talent over the years. This guy throws his body, scores goals. It's part of the game. So nobody's untouchable in this league, but I'm not into headhunting. So I just want to put that out there. Bryan, how are things?
Everything's going great. We're in the playoffs. NBA playoffs had the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. They went outright. I did pass in hockey yesterday, but 11-3 run. But yeah, I agree. If you take a look at they showed him some of his checks he's had over the past few years. He's coming up on guys who are looking at the puck. They're not paying attention. But that's their own fault. You've got to have your head on a swivel. I'm not saying it's legal or anything, but that's the way it is. It's playoff hockey, man. You've got to anticipate that kind of thing. So I don't know who's right or who's wrong, but it is a shame that thing happens especially to quality players like Pittsburgh's.
Well, I'm certainly biased. Actually, before I even say anything, congratulations on that run, 11-3, Brian. Congratulations to you on that run off Milwaukee Bucks winner yesterday. That was an exciting game, Brian, between those two clubs. But I'm biased because I'm a big Crosby fan, and I'll admit that on the show. Of course, I'm a huge Crosby fan. But one thing I'll say about him, that the team, albeit I think they're a very deep team, you could tell yesterday their leader went down. It's a lot of minutes, for your team to lose. And when it's 5 minutes to go in a period and you lose that leader, sometimes things just change. And, New York started to play better and different things like that. But I think it's very clear and not really an exaggerated statement to say that that game changed the second that Sidney Crosby left. Guys, I had the over in that game, and it was 2-0 with, I think, 5.5 minutes to go in the second period. Ended up being 3-3 or something like that to end the period, which was just crazy. So happy to cash that, but hopefully we can get Crosby healthy. No matter who wins the series, definitely would just like to see the health because, again, I know it's not a hockey talk show, but I will say this. People always compare Ovechkin's numbers to Crosby's. What they forget is that Crosby has played like 150 less games than Ovechkin due to injury. And he still has all these achievements and accomplishments. So I would just like to see him stay healthy and hopefully get back out there. Carmine, any final thoughts there?
Yeah, first of all, I've never been a fan of comparing players from different eras. The games are played differently. Everything is different. Like trying to compare, Michael Jordan to LeBron, trying to compare Wayne Gretzky to Ovechkin. These are different times. The game was played a different way. So I'm not big on it. I get a lot of people love to do it, and it's great for Twitter arguments and social media arguments in general. But to the point of Crosby, I just want to see, and I'm going to look once the show is done and watch the line for Game 6 because I'm just wondering what kind of is there going to be an over adjustment on the line if Crosby's ruled out of that game. I don't think, obviously, missing Crosby is going to hurt the Pens, but listen, they played, Andrew, if you remember, they played the beginning of the season, they were missing a lot of stars, and they played extremely well. Now, does that same form that they had at the beginning of the year translate into him missing a game in the playoffs? No, it's a completely different scenario, but I want to see if the books over adjust or if the public overreacts and starts betting the Rangers based on the fact that Crosby is out, and we don't know we don't know it right now because they're just calling it an upper body injury at this point.
As you know, I mean, the hockey general managers, coaches, team therapists, they're very secretive with that kind of stuff, Carm, 100%. So interested to see how the line comes out, what the numbers are, total and side, of course. But looking towards today's games, we're going to break down, of course, the Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, St. Louis Blues, Minnesota Wild, and the nightcap here with the LA Kings in Edmonton to take on the Oilers. Guys, let's start things off with our first game of the night. The Carolina Hurricanes at TD Garden in Boston taking on the Bruins here. The Bruins are minus 130 favorites at home. The Hurricanes plus 110. Total sits at 6 in this one. If you want the puck line for either team, minus 1.5, plus 190. Plus 1.5, probably not the route you want to go down with that price, but it is minus 235 for the Carolina Hurricanes. Taking a look at this series, it has been dominated by home ice. There is no secret about it. The home team has been the better team. Many of you know that I do like Carolina quite a bit this year, but also I just like how deep their team is. I said on the show 2 days ago that third line was going to be the difference maker for them. And I had Jordan Staal over 1.5 shots. I believe he got 3 or 4 that game. When the Boston Bruins didn't get 9 power plays, the game was a little bit different. But now you shift back at home, a team that played incredibly better, even with the power plays at TD Garden in front of their home fans. Carm, I'm not going to change my thoughts really too much here. But one thing I will say and continue to echo, because this is the way that the betting world is evolving, I truthfully believe if anybody wants to take Boston tonight, you're better off taking props on that perfection line, because those are the guys they're going to take the Bruins to a game 7. I don't think it's crazy to say that we won't get anything from the secondary scoring. We haven't really seen much of it yet from the Bruins. Why should I expect it in this game for them to get going? So that's my recommendation. I think if you like the Bruins, play some props, play these top guys to get a goal over 1.5 points, so on and so forth. If you like the Carolina Hurricanes, take a look at that team total. But it's an elimination game. As you know, Carm, I love the over in the elimination games, if applicable, if it's a situation that I like. And I think Boston will get a few goals. I also think Carolina will, and we're seeing 6, not the 6.5. So over would be the play for me in this one. But again, if you like the Bruins, I really, really strongly believe take a look at those player props with those guys, because it won't be the secondary that takes you to the promised land. Carm, what are your thoughts here? Can the Bruins turn into that different team they were back at home again?
They could. I'm going to play a little bit of a contrarian on this game, and I wish I was getting better odds, plus money wise, on Carolina. It's been a complete homer series, like you've said, and it sort of mimicked the going back to last year when we talked about like the Nashville Carolina series, where it went back and forth, and then Carolina closed it out in Nashville. I think a similar thing happens here. I think they close it out tonight. While the Bruins have not been competitive in any of the games that have been played in Carolina thus far, you have to give Carolina credit. While losing both games in Boston, they were competitive in both games. The games were close, closed out in the third period. Bruins backs are against the wall, Andrew. I just think it ends tonight at plus money. But I think the better play is, and you can just keep replaying my videos of this series. I keep going to that first period over. After that first game, the numbers were there. I took the first period over in game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, and they all hit. And it's where I'm going again here. While the game total has adjusted to 6, it did in last game, and it ended up in a push. The game total is 6 again here. The juice on the 1.5 hasn't really changed. It's still sitting at 125, and that's the play here. So I'm going over first period, over 1.5, minus 125. It's hit 4 straight games. Let's go for 5. Bryan?
I can agree with that. An interesting note, and I have Boston to win it all at 30-1, so I kind of have a vested interest in this, but I agree. I think this may be the end for Boston here. The home teams have done very well. In fact, they've done very well in the playoffs overall. But take a look at even strength goals in this series. Carolina, expected goals, 52%. And they've outscored Boston in even strength goals, 15-7. Andrew kind of touched on this about the power play situation. Boston's been dangerous on the power play in this series, but when they haven't been on the power play, only scoring 7 goals, that's the same as Calgary scored in their series against Dallas in even strength. So they haven't been putting up a lot of scoring, but I do believe that they have to come out this game and try to outscore Carolina a little bit. I prefer the Carolina side. Like you, I wish it would be a little bit higher. I'm seeing one place out there with plus 115, but basically plus 110 everywhere. And to take the team on the road, which has been something that hasn't worked out very well if you've been playing road teams in the playoffs so far. I need a little bit more there. Like Carolina here, and I agree, your first period, I think it gets out to a higher scoring period. It's 1.5 out there right now, so agree with that. But on this for a side play, nothing on the total for the full game. But I like Carolina, but I'm just not quite getting the numbers that I'm looking for.
All right, great stuff. Both Carm and Bryan looking towards the Carolina Hurricanes and that first period over. We're all looking towards goals in some way, shape, or form here between these two hockey teams. I want to clarify real quick before we go to the next game, guys. I've been so strong about these opinions on the third period overs, and I will say this. I really like the third period over much more when you have the team that is leading in the series going into that third period with a lead. Yesterday, the Pittsburgh and Rangers game was tied, so it makes the situation a little bit different. You know, you battle for that goal, you get the goal, you protect it, you know, so on and so forth. But when you look at a team that has 1 goal ahead, and they're going to be the team that wins the series if nothing else happens, you're going to get potentially 1, maybe 2 empty net goals. Add on to that, you might get a goal just regular even strength before that 10-minute mark, 15-minute mark. There's so much that goes on and so much pressure and panic that ensues, but you don't see that exact thing happen when the score is tied going into the third period, because they're going to be careful and cautious. They're going to be the exact opposite of desperate. So, these third period overs for me aren't just automatic. There's certain situations I look for, but with these guys looking at the first period over, let's just get goals throughout the entire game. I'll take that happily, and we can all make some money together. Here's a big game. Here's one to talk about here. Toronto and Tampa Bay. Bryan talked about it. Carm was talking about it. I've talked about the home ice advantage in the playoffs, and trying to have and see if a team can overcome that and break a zigzag type of pattern here. The Maple Leafs have the opportunity to end the series tonight as road underdogs in Tampa Bay, plus 115. Tampa Bay minus 135 now, and it feels like that number, Bryan, just continues to climb up the board here. Total at 6.5. We have just seen goals, and more goals between these two teams. There's only one game, I believe, that went under, and that was the 5-0 victory in the series. But when I look at this matchup, I can't help, Bryan, but think about that 16-0 record of Vasilevsky. That might actually be 17-0 now in the past 2 playoffs after a loss. It's just an unbelievable record, an unbelievable goals against average, and it's hard to not look at something like that when you see someone do something like that so consistently. Do you believe we'll see a Game 7 tonight, Bryan, or do you have any thoughts on side or total?
Well, I did the Wager Talk Today show yesterday, and I congratulated Prez on how well Toronto has done, and I said it's going to go to a Game 7, so I can't really back off of that here. Toronto's been the better team when it comes to expected goals, 53.63 in this series. And they have actually outscored all strengths 14-11 in this series. But I hate to think too much about what Toronto's done in the past, but it's got to come into your thought process that they've been in this position before where they've had the ability to put somebody away, a good team, and they haven't done it. I think we get a good effort today out of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay off of a loss has just been tremendous. We've talked about this in the regular season, talk about it in the playoffs, and now they're coming back at home. I'm a numbers guy, and I try to look at the numbers and come out with what I think is value in that regard. But from a thought process, you've got to take a look at Tampa Bay and say they're 2-time defending champions. They're playing Toronto, a team who's known to choke in the past. They're playing them at home. Are they really going to go out on their home ice after winning back-to-back championships in the NHL? I don't see it tonight. I think we see a high-scoring game, and we see Toronto. Got to go back to Toronto for Game 7. I like Tampa here, and I wouldn't think of anything other than another high-scoring game here. It'll be a lot of fun, but I think this one goes back to Toronto, and we go to a Game 7 at that point. It's got to be a coin flip at that point, right?
Well, I believe it's going to go 7 as well, Bryan, and I mentioned that on the show, actually, at the start of the series. It was actually paying, Bryan, plus 200. That's all it was for the series to go 7. So not only us, but also the odds makers thought this one would go the full 12 rounds, too. One thing interesting before I go to you, Carm, I just wanted to mention, last game was the first time that the team that scored first did not win the hockey game. We saw that third period comeback from the Maple Leafs. I just wanted to mention, if you do like the Tampa Bay Lightning, you can take them in the first period, minus a half goal. It's somewhere around plus 165, 170 tonight. I'm really, really in the belief that the team that wins the first period wins the game tonight. Hats off to the effort of the Maple Leafs to come back. But I think the first goal, first period is really important here, Carmen, this game tonight.
Yeah, it is. You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, and I'm with Bryan, first of all, on this going to Game 7. I'm really hoping it goes to Game 7 because I won't be watching the game tonight, of course, being at the wife's birthday, but I will be watching Game 7 if it does go that far. But you talked about Vasilevsky's record, and he's going to have to be every bit as good, if not better, than he was in those not the elimination games, but those games off losses where I think he's like 16 in a row, I think you said. Because the Leafs are going to come at him tonight. The Leafs are going to get a lot of rubber on goal. Tampa's going to have to play their best game of the series tonight to avoid elimination. I think they do. And the price is low. We've seen this. It's just been a zigzag series, and you don't make that part of your betting, but it's just these teams are trading wins. It's destined to go Game 7, or should go Game 7, Andrew, I think at the very least. I haven't looked, but over the last couple of seasons in the playoffs, I think this could be the first time. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time during their 2 cup runs that Tampa's faced an elimination game. Again, I'm not certain of that. I'll have to go back and look at it. I can correct myself later on in the show, but I'm taking Tampa tonight. You have to go if you're going to take Tampa. Every single game has gone over the total as well, too, guys. I just don't see, other than that 5-0 game. The overs in the Eastern Conference have been an absolute moneymaker. It sits at 15-4-1 right now through 20 games. 76 or 78% of the games have gone over the total in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, it's 10-9 after last night's under. For 52%, and that's a 52%. It might be a positive number, but it is a losing number as far as VIG goes, because you factor in the juice and you're losing money taking the overs in the Western Conference. It's complete money in the East. Give me the over here, Andrew, and a smaller play on the Lightning.
All right, looking towards a Game 7. And we're looking towards some goals as well. Hard to argue it between these two teams and the way they play for a full 60. Again, guys, I think this applies to a lot of situations tonight. But in my prop best bet I'll have at the end of the show, I'll talk about a Tampa Bay player I expect to get lots of shots on goal. If you do like the dog and these teams that are trying to fight off elimination, one thing you also could look at and an avenue to explore are the shots on goal, because you aren't looking towards somebody scoring, just giving it that effort of putting pucks on net. And if they don't get the result they want, you're still going to cash your ticket with that effort of putting shots on net. So I'll have a bet at the end of the show here with the Tampa Bay Lightning and a player prop on that. But let's move on, to the Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues here. Carm, what a series this has been, man. This has been a crazy series. We've seen some goaltending switches. We've seen momentum switches. We've seen home ice advantage. We've seen wins on the road. There's been a lot going on here between physicality, the superstars showing up. How about a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko, a guy that, you couldn't find with binoculars for the first half of that game, and all of a sudden he gets, just an unbelievable third period, shows up for his team. St. Louis Blues, both of us talked about how dangerous they can be, but is consistent the word we want to look for here? Will the Minnesota Wild be able to bounce back, fight off elimination? They've got so much talent out there, but it feels like after Kirill Kaprizov and a few other guys, it's time for me to mention the depth issues on the Wild. I mean, would you agree with me there, Carm, that we're certainly seeing a lot more depth scoring for the Blues than we are for the Wild?
Yeah, I think we are, but I think the Blues. Listen, as far as like the thing, the Blues just can make a team. The way they play defensively at times, they can make a very good offensive team look very bad, and I think they have in a way the last couple of games. Obviously, that switch to Binnington, and I talked about it heading into the playoffs. Binnington really played well in the last 30 days of the NHL season. In the games he got in, he was playing well. He struggled at the beginning of the year, so they had two goalies that if they had to go from Husso for some reason to Binnington, I didn't think it was a downgrade. I thought it was just a lateral movement. And now Binnington's got 2 wins. He's likely he's going to be between the pipes again tonight. And I think St. Louis is going to close it out. This was a matchup where before the playoffs started, I released to my clients the St. Louis Blues at 18-1 to win the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they were that price only because of the fact that they've got to get through Minnesota first, and then they got to get Colorado after that. But I thought they match up well with Colorado, but still they had to get by this Wild team. And they're almost there, but you still got to get there. And tonight's it's the acid test for the Minnesota Wild. Does that offense show up? As long as the Blues play a disciplined game and stay out of the box, and you keep that Minnesota power play and that scoring talent off the ice on these 5-on-4 situations, I think the Blues get the win tonight. I think they close up this series. So I'm taking the Blues. I have no opinion on the total in this one, Andrew. Bryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you take a look at this series, these teams are virtually equal. From an expected goals percentage, we're looking at Minnesota at 51.2. From an actual goal percentage, all strengths, we've got Minnesota down 17-15. So these teams are virtually equal. And it was a nice thought you had on St. Louis, because coming into this series, Minnesota was the team that everybody thought this is going to be a dangerous team once they got Fleury. And everybody's talking about Colorado being odds on the best team in the playoffs. So St. Louis has been very impressive, and they can actually, if they win this series, they can give Colorado a really good series there. So it wouldn't be a shock to see St. Louis advance. And to look at that ahead of time, congrats to that for you, because they had to have been overpriced in that regard coming into the playoffs, especially when you've taken a look at what's going on here. I'm leaning with Minnesota here. St. Louis has been just terrific in the power play in this series. When you take a look at even strength, these teams are just about equal. When you talk about St. Louis trying to keep Minnesota from getting on the power play, I look at it just the opposite, that I think is very important that the Minnesota Wild don't put St. Louis on the power play. I will go out and make that bold statement here that whoever gets more penalties is going to lose this game. I think it comes down to that, because these two teams are so equal. I think I like Minnesota here. Slight value on Minnesota because they're behind in the series, and you're getting them at like minus 105, even money or something like that. But yeah, it's whoever wins this series is going to be dangerous against Colorado. Colorado may come in a little bit. They won that game early. They get to rest up their players, but then again, it's the rest versus rust type of thing. So, but a slight differential with you, but this is going to be a hell of a game. And either one of these teams advances, I think they got a really nice shot against Colorado.
It is going to be a great game, Bryan. You talk about the special teams there, and what you said. As much as you're kind of laughing while you say it, the team that's the most disciplined will win the game, but it's true. I'm right there with you. I think that it's not a wild statement to make, and really an obvious one to say, hey, look, the team that does the best on the special teams, especially, Bryan, with the way the referees are calling it this playoffs, they're calling it like it's the regular season, which I guess I have no problem with. But a lot of my handicapping and just as a fan of the game, you like to see a little more rougher stuff come playoff time. A lot of stuff, especially the stick work, tripping, slashing, hooking, that stuff is really being called. We've had some questions about this too, Bryan. So I wanted to follow up with you about that, about your handicap. And I'll get Carm's thoughts as well afterwards, just for him to add in again about it. The special teams. How often are you looking right now at special team percentages from the last game or from the regular season from these teams? Because I think it's a huge deal right now in the playoffs, and we're seeing how important these power plays and PKs are.
Yeah, you definitely have to take a look at, after the game's over, who had more penalties and who had more shots on goal with those opportunities. It's just something I always take a look at, and it gives you an idea of, I talked about this yesterday in the, I had a play on the show, the WagerTalk Today show yesterday. I didn't use anything for my clients, but I did play first period with the Rangers, because I thought if they were to fall behind in this game, their physicality may come out and they get a little bit frustrated, and their season's about to be over, and there'll be a lot of penalties in the second and third period. They did fall behind. They were down 1-0 after the first period, but they were able to bounce back, and they kept it together. That was pretty impressive from a team that comes into the series as a physical team, the better physical team in that, against more of a finesse team in Pittsburgh. So I was a little bit excited for the Rangers in that regard. But yeah, that's something you always have to take a look at. Is I do a lot with the expected goals, and I like to look at if the teams are playing even strength. I look at the even strength numbers right now, and we'll talk about that in the next game that we talk about. We'll go over here. But yeah, it's something you always have to take a look at, especially when you've got teams like a Washington, teams like an Edmonton, um, Colorado, teams that are very good on the power play. You don't want to put them on the power play. And there's stats out there showing that if the refs call a penalty on one team, the other team will likely get the next penalty. You got to keep that in mind when you're looking to play live odds. That's something I always take a look at. So a lot of things go into it, and that's why this sport and all sports are so hard to handicap. You got so many things you can look at.
Absolutely, and it's definitely been a big part of the playoffs here, Carm. Special teams. How much are you looking at it right now, Carm, with these teams, how they're executing or how they aren't executing on the power play?
I'm trying to I'm trying to keep an eye on it on a game by game basis, because you look at the Boston Bruins and you saw it. Like, I think 3 games into the series, I think the Boston Bruins were like something like 4 of their last 40 power plays. That's not very good. And you look at the Florida Panthers. I think the Florida Panthers, their first 13 power plays, I'm not sure where they're at now because I didn't look at last night's official game stats, but they had gone 0 for 13, their first 13 power plays against the Washington Capitals, right? So those are ones that you sort of watch and you follow along in a series, because obviously special teams, and Bryan said it's a very important part of this. It's a very important part of the game. And you look at teams throughout the regular season. I mentioned it with the Pittsburgh Penguins, teams that just don't take penalties, very, very well disciplined teams. And I think the Penguins were just under 7 minutes a game during the regular season. That is an unbelievable number. If you're playing 5-on-5 or you're on the power play and you're not giving up power plays, your power play percentage is going to be elevated because of it, because you're only killing off a couple penalties a game. As long as you're not giving any up, you've got a great number. But you have to factor every single stat into your capping, Andrew. My thoughts, anyways.
Well, and one thing I'll say before we move on to our last game is that power play percentage is great and being able to capitalize on it. But what a lot of people don't realize is that some teams are actually statistically better at drawing penalties. If you draw penalties, even if you aren't scoring, you're taking the other team's best player off the ice is what you're doing. And you're giving them less minutes in that hockey game. And that's what happened in the Bruins game 4, where they weren't even crushing it on the power play. But when you have 9 power plays, you're going to just throw off the other team. How can Carolina get any consistency and build momentum when you're always in the box? So it's something I look towards. And in that Wild Blues series, I just wanted to bring it up because it was a good point by Bryan that I think the least penalized team in that game will probably come out on top. And let's talk about more power plays and penalties and all this good stuff.
Can I jump in just one?
Go ahead, Carm.
Sorry, Andrew. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. It's just before we get too far away from it, someone in chat, Seth, asked, is there any value in taking Tampa Bay plus 285 right now to win the series? Now, if you do a quick calculation, the Leafs, Tampa Bay is minus 135 right now. If you take the 135 and the game goes to, let's say it goes to game 7, the money line in game 7, if it's similar to what it's been for the last few games, you're going to get Tampa Bay at about plus 115. So if you took those true numbers of plus 115 and 135 tonight in a parlay, that would pay 274. So if you're finding 285, you're getting a little bit more value to take them to win the series. So we're almost close to true odds, and obviously that changes if this Tampa line goes to like minus 140 and they're only plus 110 in game 7. But you're looking at pretty much true odds right now on taking Tampa to win the series based on what the game 6 line is right now and what the game 7 line should be.
Great point there, Carm. Definitely worth mentioning that, and making sure you're getting the right odds and the true odds. And if not, you might as well just bet the team you think will win the series in both games remaining. Let's break down the Oilers and the Kings. This will be our final game we break down before show best bets at the end. Kings plus 120 at home, Edmonton minus 140 visitors, total at 6.5 here. And LA leads the series 3-2. We saw the Edmonton Oilers claw back, send it to overtime. Guys, I had a plus 825 ticket on the Oilers. before that power play. And hey, as our pal Dave Sherapan says, value doesn't really matter if the win doesn't come through. So it was a CLV trash can type of thing for me in that one. But a quote that Connor McDavid said after the game that Carmine and I both talked about last night together was, if you score 4 goals, you should be able to win a hockey game, especially in the playoffs. Brian, when I look at this LA Kings team, I look at a team that played one of their worst games of the series, actually, in my eyes, and still came out on top. We just talked about power plays. The Oilers went 2 of 3. The LA Kings went 1 of 5. So if they even get 2 or 3 more power play goals, that is a completely different game. You look at the matchups, the block shots, the shots on goal, 23-28. The Oilers were clear-cut favorites. Everybody thought they would get it done. I thought it would be a close series, closer than some thought, but I didn't think it would be like this, Brian, here. What are your thoughts? Will we see a Game 7, or do you think this series ends tonight?
This is a fascinating game. This is the most fascinating game on the card for me tonight. And you mentioned a lot of it. First off, you've got an Edmonton team who's the high-scoring team with the star players. Everybody loves them. Coming in, the opener here, Los Angeles was plus 135. Now I'm seeing as low as 120s out there. So the line is really moving towards Los Angeles. And that would be something totally against what we would anticipate going into this. The team that has their backs to the wall in Edmonton not taking money. And what is really, if you take a look at the stats from this series, it's just incredible. You take a look at all strengths, expected goal percentage, the LA Kings 51.26 over Edmonton's 48.74. That's somewhat of a shocker to me. If you take a look at actual goals, all strengths, Edmonton 21-15. You talked about the Kings. The Kings on the power play are even. They've scored 2 goals on the power play in this series. They've given up 2 shorthanded goals on the power play. Edmonton's a team that is 7 goals better than the Kings are in this series when the team is on a power play. So it all comes down to LA's got to keep Edmonton from getting that extra guy on the ice. They've got to be able to play him even. If they played him even, the goals against are still, decent. In fact, the Kings are up 1. They're playing even money, even strength throughout this series. But you've got a Kings team, an Oilers team has got their backs to the wall here. Just amazing to me how this series has worked out. 1 minute, the Kings are obviously the better team. The next minute, the Kings look terrible, and then you go, well, now it comes down. Now Edmonton is back to where they should be. A fascinating game. You had a good point earlier when you talked about the third period, the teams being up and down. Edmonton has been such a slow starter in this series, and they've had to fight their way back. If the Kings score first in this game, I am going to play Edmonton at a better number, obviously, and I'm going to play the over. So this is the one game from a live betting standpoint that I'm looking to play the Oilers. I think the Oilers will come out. If they do fall behind in this game, you're going to get shots aplenty up on the goal, and they're just going to try to just out-athlete the Kings in this situation. So I'm hoping the Kings get off to a 1-0 start, and then I'm going to bet Edmonton on the money line, and I'm going to bet Edmonton over this game to go over the total at that point, and that's really what I'm looking for.
Well, it'd definitely be nice to get a really good price on that, and they are notorious for slow starting. So great points there, Brian. I'm right there with you. And no Darnell Nurse serving a 1-game suspension, so that definitely helps out with the over. He's been a big factor on the blue line for the Edmonton Oilers. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Carm, on this series here. The Oilers might not be what we thought they were, and I feel like that's kind of been a statement that people have been saying for years and years and years now. You look at this LA Kings team, our pal Gabe Morency was talking about how he thinks they could be comparable to what the Montreal Canadiens were last year. I know everyone knows I'm a Canadiens fan, but when you think about it, hot goaltender, the same shutdown center with Philip Deneau, and a bunch of guys that just work their asses off, no superstars really. It's kind of what the Kings are. And Carm, one thing I'm worried about is that we saw 2 goals from Draisaitl in the third period, 1 goal from McDavid. You still don't get the win. I think that unless, Evander Kane, Nugent Hopkins, those guys step up tonight, I mean, we could see a hat trick out of McDavid, and it wouldn't shock me if the Kings won this game. You need to have depth scoring all around.
Yeah. First, I was trying not to laugh while you were talking because people didn't see when Bryan was talking. We're almost finished the show, and housekeeping walked into the room, and I was flashing signs, and Andrew could see and thought I was flashing like gang signs in the background here. But I was just telling them I need another 5 or 10 minutes to finish off this show. But with that said, listen, man, it's what do we get out of Mike Smith tonight? We know the Oilers are going to show up, and I agree with Bryan. If the Kings score first, then we've got to go. You take the Oilers in game because you're going to get some plus money on this game. But with on the Oilers, the opening price was horrible. It should have never been 160. It's where it really should be right now, 140, 120. If Smith can play a game in which he makes absolutely no errors and just stops pucks like he's supposed to, the Kings' top 2 lines are going to get it done. I talked about that second line, and the second line was outplayed by the Moore and Deneau line of the Kings. And when your second line on the Oilers gets outplayed, it pretty much negates everything that that McDavid and that first line did. So you're going to need scoring. You're going to need secondary scoring from the Oilers tonight. And if they can get that done, they get the win and send it back to Edmonton for Game 7. But they are by no means a lock tonight. That word shouldn't exist in sports betting. It's going to be a fun game. As far as the total goes, Andrew, I'll tell you right now, I'm leaning to the under here. I still think 6.5 is too much. This is one of those games where the Kings are going to try and shut them down more so than going out there and getting into a 200-foot game with the Edmonton Oilers and trading goals. So I'm leaning to the under here as well too. And let's the Oilers. I want to see Game 7s. I love Game 7s.
Can I make a score prediction here, Carm? I think we're going to see it 3-2 for some team, hopefully LA, going into the third period. And to Bryan's point, and what you talked about there with the total being a little high at 6.5, we're going to have to see the Oilers climb out of a little bit of a hole. I think, what we think could happen with an Oilers big first period and what should happen and what will happen. Look at the Florida series. I mean, everyone's been thinking bounce back. I had a big play on the team total over for them in one game. Playoff hockey is different. I feel like we might see a 3-2 LA going into the third period, and there'll be some drama as far as the money line, some drama as far as the total, and it'll make for a great third period. So hopefully we can all come out on top, though, and make some money. Guys, let's jump into the show best bets. Go ahead, Carm.
No, I'm good. I was just going to add a couple things before we get into the show best bets. Number one, while you guys were talking, I was able to look it up. The Tampa Bay Lightning have, in their 2 Stanley Cup runs, have never faced an elimination game. The only series to go 7 games or go the full distance was against the New York Islanders, and in that one, the Islanders were facing elimination in Game 6, forcing a Game 7 that Tampa eventually won. So the first time facing elimination in the last 3 Stanley Cup playoffs for the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. That's the only other thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, the last time they faced elimination was when they got swept against the Columbus Blue Jackets, which is in the bubble, I believe. So a long time ago. For me, guys, I'm going to start things off. Usually I go around the horn first, but I'll start things off with my show best bet here. Before I do that, though, I have a 4% baseball play up tonight. 4% NHL play going tonight. The low volume's been working for me. Coming off a 1-1 split, though, yesterday, but running pretty hot over the last couple weeks here and last few months, so we'll try and keep that going. The prop bets, I had a few people say, hey, why are you doing props this playoffs? We want totals and sides. 7-1. That's the record here with the prop bets on the show since the playoffs started. We'll try and move it to 8-1 tonight. My prop bet's going to be Braden Point over 2.5 shots on goal at a -130 price here. Of course, they're facing elimination. They're a team that's desperate right now. They're playing at home. And Braden Point's been creating a lot of offense here. His lines look great, and I'm asking him to get me 3 shots tonight, over 2.5 shots on goal. Again, you can find me at WagerTalk.com. You can also find Bryan Leonard at WagerTalk.com, WT.buzz/BL. Bryan, what's going on for you tonight, brother?
Yeah, 2 plays up in hockey. That's it for tonight. Hockey's been doing terrific, as we talked about earlier. The NBA playoffs last year, I was number 1 on win percentage and net profit NBA playoffs, and it's continued now. I don't do a lot with the NBA during the regular season because you don't know who's going to play. Once the playoffs start, everybody comes out to play, and so I think it's much easier to handicap the NBA and baseball. It would have been good yesterday. I had the Reds up the Astros up 5-1, and the game was postponed at that point. But yeah, everything's been going great right now, and we're looking forward to another terrific week here.
Awesome. Great to have you as always, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you and Carm are sharing some thoughts. You and Carm are sharing some thoughts here for best bets tonight.
Yeah,
Your
we
best
are.
bet.
I'll be brief because Carmine's got the same play as I do. Talked about this earlier. The Boston game to go over 1.5 in the first period at what I think is a pretty cheap line. I expect this game to come out and have a little bit more offense in it. And Boston's a team, obviously I've got them to win it also. I hope they win, but nothing on the side in this game. But I think we're going to see an active first period in this Boston game, and I'll let Carmine give you the good information on this one.
Awesome stuff, Bryan. Carm, busy day for you tonight?
The good information. Yeah, guys, it's a vacation. It's a rough life. Before I get into the best bet, I'm going to head to the cabana now and soak up some sun. And then we have a date at the spa a little later, some shopping, and then dinner tonight and some hockey in the background. Hey, listen, it's back to the real world next week, Tuesday on in my home office. So let me enjoy the last few days. Listen, now one game up in afternoon soccer. It's the North London Derby. It's an absolutely massive game in the APL. I've got to play up on that. 3 plays up in NHL. We swept the board yesterday in the NHL. Hopefully can do the same tonight. And I also have already posted up on the WagerTalk site a 5% NHL play for tomorrow. 12-3 thus far in 2022 with these 5% plays. So hitting that 80% clip, I'm pretty happy about that in the NHL. My play is going to be that first period, guys. I've said it since game 1 ended that we're going to see some goals in this series. People normally look at Carolina and Boston and think this is a low-scoring series. We've seen it in this series and in every series in the East. Goals are being scored, but specifically in the first period of this series, we've seen goals scored. So through the last 4 games, that first period, 1.5 has gone over each and every time, and the books are just not adjusting the juice. It's always been somewhere between 115 to 125, and that's where it's at today. So we're going to go over the total, 1.5 minus 125. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And we are not going to try and fix it, expecting some goals into that game. And the start of the game, especially Carm and Bryan with the first period over in Carolina versus Boston at minus 125. I have Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 130. And for a bonus pick, comment below over under amount of stamps on Carmine's passport in 2022. We'll try and send you a t-shirt if you're accurate on that one. He's a traveling man living a really rough life. But on behalf of these 2 guys, I'm Andrew, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Stop. Don't buy that picks package or all access. Wait, what? Yep. Don't click add to cart until you check out our new deals page at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo, where you can find all the latest offers, promotions, and coupons available all in one place. These deals are updated daily and can be found by clicking deals in the nav at WagerTalk or Sports Memo, going to wt.buzz/deals, or scanning the